and welcome to the weekly astrology and spirituality show for week commencing the 4th of April. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you feel the power of that new moon in Aries, the first of the astrological year, which combined with Chiron, the wounded healer, and gives us a great opportunity to think about what we need as individuals. Chiron is often where we shine in terms of what we give to others, but it can often be where we feel that there is a loss or we don't get the nourishment we'd really want, because the sign of Aries is about new beginnings or initiations. Our sense of freedom, our sense of purpose, our sense of identity, particularly with Mercury in the mix, we're being asked to balance our intuition, Chiron, with our intellect, Mercury. So I think that's a very important backdrop energy this week. We also still have Mars combining with Saturn, particularly in the first half of the week, but the Sun and Mercury in Aries are going to be forging a very constructive link to Saturn. So if we could go through things in a very purposeful way, particularly about our future plans, and get a good balance between our individual moves and how it will play out longer term, I think that's going to be an effective thing to do. Now, at the end of this week, Mercury does square up to Pluto, and that's a rather tense aspect. We could encounter someone who wants to be rather dogmatic and put their views upon us and be quite forceful about expressing them. And as this week draws to a close, we do have a quarter moon in the sign of Cancer. Now, of course, the moon governs the sign of Cancer, but the sun is in the go-getting Aries. So whatever aims we have, we just need to be conscious of how that will affect our environment or our emotional responses. So that's the astrology for this week. In terms of the Hermetic wheel, what do we have this week?
Well, for the entirety of this week, we're in Three of Wands territory. And the Three of Wands is about new beginnings, new horizons. It can be about travel. If it's not about physical travel, this is a journey within our own lives. And sometimes things, stop, and sometimes things start, and sometimes things change. And in some ways this is very apt for our show this week, because this will be our final astrology and spirituality show. And there are quite a few reasons for this, but I think a little bit like that Three of Wands energy, it's about moving on to something new. We started this show during COVID, and that was to maybe just help each other, through that process. We do, I feel, have a YouTube family here, and it was about helping each other as a family. And that might sound cheesy, but that's why it was. And I think that there are other things going on in the world now, and perhaps our commentary on certain things has come to a natural close. I know for me personally that spirituality cannot be separate from the world that we live in. It has to coexist. So I find it a bit difficult at times to be able to talk about spiritual topics without threading in maybe the political sphere, or maybe animal welfare, or whatever it is I'm feeling in that moment. And for me to give my authentic best, I have to feel that I can speak freely about those subjects. And maybe this show isn't quite the place to do that. So I'm finding my way through a new journey, and as we all are.
Well, maybe the show has given us an opportunity to express those feelings, and generally people have been very supportive, but not everybody has got it, but that's fine, because everyone has a point of view. I think some people think that the spiritual domain should be kept very separate from the material and worldly domain. We don't believe that to be the case. That's, we're very down-to-earth people, and so I think that has caused some controversy at times. but a lot of people have become very, very dear followers, and we've had lots of conversations. Some people, I think, have lost their lives due to COVID that were with us in the early days, to be honest. And some people have made way. But I think for us both, we just feel that we just don't have 1 ounce of energy left to give this. We do a lot of other work with the channel, with recording videos and the work that you don't see. So for example, on the show, once the show's finished, and it takes probably about an hour and a half of planning, but once it's finished, that will take Alyssa about 5 hours to sort out all the graphics. And so it means that we have been working 7 days a week. And it's about a year since we stopped doing the daily show and we changed to the weekly format. We have thought about, would we change it to a monthly format? And we thought, no, we actually feel that we have been losing a little bit of an edge. We feel that we've not had the energy to be as vibrant as we once were. And on Facebook this week, an image came up of about a year ago of us in the show. And I thought, oh my God, is that us?
Yeah.
Because we are doing quite a lot in our situation, and
and we want to be able to give the best of
ourselves.
To you. It's funny because my brother's studying acting at the moment, and he sent me a quote yesterday of this director, and the director said that when we give anything to anyone, it's a sacrifice of ourselves, and we have to be give the best of ourselves. And there are other ways that we can do that. For example, I'd love to do some more tarot videos. So we're not disappearing. This isn't us, saying we're never going to see any of you again, because you have become a huge part of our weekly lives. But it's just going to be in a very different way, and hopefully a way that we can give the best of ourselves.
Yeah, and it's not to say that we won't rekindle this in the future, but we don't think that that's likely at the moment. So what we wanted to do this week was to celebrate 3 words of the week, because we had 3 entered. The first was by Alini, and that was eternal. Now, a very good friend of mine lost her father recently, and she made the point in an email to me today, actually, that her relationship with her dad is continuing, but just in a different sphere. And I thought that was lovely. So for me, that's one of the ways that we can still connect to people eternally, is by realising that whether that animal or human has left the planet in a physical form, their spirit is still eternal. So that's one thing that I very strongly feel about.
I love
how
that.
does eternal?
I think even if we are a complete atheist, and if don't believe anything after this life, which is not my point of view, but even if that was the case, the memory of that person, the laughs that we've had, or the company of that animal, or the just having had that love is why it hurts so bad when it seems to have disappeared. But that love is eternal. Nothing can break that down.
Yeah, that's lovely. And then Tim, lovely Tim, a great contributor to the show. Tim has suggested affection.
Oh, that's a good one, Tim. Affection's funny, really, because people show affection in different ways, and people also like to receive affection in different ways. We've heard this thing about the love language. Some people show affection through buying gifts for people. That's how they show they care. Other people might write a nice note. Other people might say it in words. Some people might do it in acts of service, saying, can I make you a cup of tea? Can I make you dinner? We all have different ways of showing each other affection, and we all have different ways of liking affection back. So maybe having a chat with our friends or loved ones this week about how we'd like to feel affection might help some relationships.
Because one of the words in affection is affect.
Ooh.
So through the warmth of affection, we can affect situations. So that's a point, perhaps. And then Julie has suggested utopia.
Oh, that's another great one. We have 3 absolutely crackers this week. Utopia is the idea that we can reach a perfect community or world where everybody's morals are in the same place, everybody's striving for the same thing, and it's almost like a perfect plane.
So that would be
existence.
So the word UT, so utilitarian, universal.
Oh, yeah.
But what about utopia in terms of each individual person may have a different utopia?
That's true, and that's why utopia is pretty difficult to attain, because we all have different ideas of what paradise means to us. But I think maybe that when we pass in some ways, that there is a universal understanding of what life has been about. That's my view. Might not have the same perspective on it, but an understanding of what this awesome journey of being a human has been about.
Okay. Now, if you would like to describe the most important word that you relate your life to, what would you think it would be? We haven't rehearsed this, I just thought of this.
The important word that relates to my life. I think for me it's about love. I know that's a pretty easy word, it's kind of obvious, but love for me is something that is the biggest blessing in my life. The love of nice food, the love of my husband, the love of pets that have been in my life, or
Granddad and grandma.
My grandma and granddad, my mum, my family. The love of little hobbies I've enjoyed over time. That to me is
the love of your teddy bears.
I love my teddy bears. What about you? What would sums up?
Kindness. It may be something that we don't always find easy to be kind, because sometimes people may try us to such a degree that we don't always respond in an optimum way. People, I feel, are a bit like the Zodiac signs. There's the optimum version of people, and there's very much the sub-optimum person types of behaviour. So for me, kindness is a very, very important sort of guiding principle in my life. I think my mum was a very kind person, and so kindness is the one for me.
Well, you're definitely the kindest person I've ever met.
Oh, thank you. Now, Nasona made the point about the debate on faith and hope, and made a very intelligent observation that they are co-extensive. So they're not mutually exclusive, they are co-extensive. So I thought that was what happens when we discuss things. We generally don't have any scripts whatsoever. With the astrology, I just have a few sort of badly written notes. I'm not sure if you've ever seen my writing.
There's your notes, yeah.
There's my notes, but my writing is pretty shocking. I think if you've watched The Daily Show, you'll know I mentioned that when I used to come back from holiday and I'd send my mum a card when she was living where I was living for the last 5.5 years of her life, and she'd go, "Here, what the bloody hell have you written here? I can't bloody understand a word." Because my writing is pretty shocking. So we ad-libbed this. So when the concept came up that Carmen expressed, that she felt that faith was a very binding and very powerful and potent word, and that hope was in some way kind of maybe a bit flimsier, it wasn't that we were dissing hope at all. So what you did, Nasina, is that actually you went on to think about and actually articulate the coexistence between those two in a very astute way. So thank you for that. Yeah. Now Carmen is also another very lovely contributor to the show, has asked people generally on the thread underneath last week's video, how do people feel about artificial intelligence and robotics? Is this really going to be good for society? And I really, really relate to where you're coming from, because if we have, for example, driverless lorries, yes, it may make big distribution companies more profit, but there's no profit in the human side of life, humans need to have a sense of purpose. And I think work can be very important for that. I think it's probable that we are working making our way towards something like a 4-day week. That probably will become the norm over the next few years. And obviously we've had a lot more home working and flexibility. But I have a friend who works in health, and in her organisation, people wanting to work from home has actually caused a lot of chaos, because it has broken down the sort of structure of the way people worked closely together. So when you're working in a very integrative way around sort of processes, having people outside of that has actually been, in her view, disruptive. But we are probably going to have more artificial intelligence and technology coming into our lives. It's even affecting the world of astrology. Obviously you have got some apps, and you've got some content which is based on people's time, date and place of birth for each day. So they give you an overarching review of that day based on your birth data, but it's all machine produced. And actually what it does is it pulls in the aspect which is closest that day. So you could get exactly the same sentence replicated 3 months later if you've got a retrograde. So no one is writing that all the time. They may have written the original words. So that kind of stuff's been around for quite a long time. So I agree that, we do have some benefits that can come from high-tech equipment in health, for example, maybe able to spot cancers and so on quicker. But we'll also have people who have a lot of money will be saying that, or be finding ways to extend their lives to their 200 years old, which I don't actually think is particularly great. And I think, is it Elon Musk? Is it
Elon Musk?
Elon Musk. He's saying that he doesn't want to live to a grand old age. He doesn't actually, despite the fact that he's involved in a lot of technological advances. So I thought that was quite interesting. Yeah. So Carmen, I totally agree that we need humans and we need interaction. And that's one of the downsides perhaps of Pluto moving into Aquarius next year. It can create a more remote sort of power that's going to go on in society. So interesting. Now, the winner of the final... Well, we've got a lovely bird just walking behind us, because I can see in the reflection of the camera. I think it's a sparrow. We've got the winner, the final winner of the birthday prize draw, natal horoscope, and it's MGirl954. So I'm going to don my glasses for this final analysis. Now, M was born on the 10th of April 1974 in Trenton, Michigan. Now, I actually haven't looked at this at all, I'm afraid. I apologise, but that's really what makes this analysis a little bit more sort of fresh and have an edge, because I haven't always had time to look at them.
Let's put Patrick under pressure.
Well, one of the things that you have, I can see straight away, you have an aspect that I have, but you have it in completely the opposite part of my situation. So you have Saturn conjunct Mars. Yours isn't quite as tight as mine. There's about a 5-degree difference, but in the 6th house, but they're both in Gemini. So I think you're someone who can be very productive with your thinking and your words, because you've got a mixture of Virgo energy with the 6th, precision, but the expressive and mental energies of Gemini with Mars. Mars in Gemini can be brilliant for writers and communicators and journalists and so on, but you've got it conjunct Saturn. So you have to really be very precise in your approach, otherwise that can lead you to feel a bit ragged. And I think if things aren't quite set up as you want, I think that can sort of, be a little bit irritating, and that can create frustration. Mars conjunct Saturn is rather like driving with the handbrake on. And of course we do have Mars conjunct Saturn this week. And if there have been some friendships that have been waning a little bit in your situation, or some longer term hopes, it could be because of Mars conjunct Saturn, or you've been feeling more exasperated about some elements of life, or feeling actually really quite exhausted because Mars is limited by Saturn. So you probably have to really focus your energies. But you do have a very good link between the Sun at 20 degrees in the third house, again, very Gemini, to do with communication, and that is conjunct Chiron. So a bit of a reflection of this week's new moon. So I think you have a need for your voice and ideas to be heard. People with Chiron on the Sun often need to feel recognition quite strongly. You also have a really positive link between Uranus, Mars and Saturn in the 9th house. So I think you're someone who's very open-minded in some ways, with the moon in Sagittarius, pretty close to Neptune in the sign of Sagittarius. Again, moon in Sagittarius is quite free-spirited. It's in the 11th house, quite Aquarius. So you can see there's a lot of communicational stuff around your chart, but that need to be very precise. But then if we take the midpoint between the Sun and the Moon, it's actually at 10 degrees Aquarius. So I would say that over the last year, as Saturn has been squaring Uranus, it's probably been quite tough for you. And also Uranus has been moving through your 4th house of home and emotion. Saturn's been in the 1st house. So I think something's been changing in your world. There may have been part of you that's been resistant to that change, or impatient for change, and it's not happening quick enough. So quite an interesting set of influences there. But you do have Jupiter in Pisces in its home zone, where it is at the moment. So you've just had a Jupiter return. So I hope that has brought some kind of financial benefit to you relatively recently. So that's a bit of a look round your natal chart. You have the ascendant in Capricorn. So, you know, you're a person that is significant in your approach. Now, in your progress chart, the Sun is at 6 degrees in Gemini. And I can see that the midpoint between the Sun and the Moon's actually at the moment in Virgo in the 6th house. So there's a big need at the moment to get the organisational side of your life working smoothly. And that's really come in the last 3 months, I feel. But Mars has been broadly in opposition with Pluto in the last few years. And maybe there's been some politics going on around a romantic relationship, perhaps around your groups of friends. Also, the move in Pluto in the sky has been squaring your Venus. So I think some politics have probably been going on around friendships or a relationship. So that gives you a little bit of a flavour of what's going on. You've also got Pluto and Uranus in your progress chart in the 7th house. So and Saturn is squaring Pluto. So yeah, politics around a relationship, a family or home matter, I think would be possible then. But, you know, you do have a better year to come, I feel, because, you know, I think that the energy that Saturn squaring Uranus was causing right up until the, you know, the 3rd month of this year, it's really making way now. And I think that's going to be quite liberating for you. So also you've got the move in Saturn moves into your 2nd house. So you may have had a bit of a windfall with the help of your Jupiter, which will have also gone over your native Venus, which is exalted in Pisces in the 2nd house. So money has probably been somewhere where you've done quite well, I feel. Jupiter's been helping that recently, but Saturn's moving into that area for some of the rest of this year. So a new idea you've got, you may have to work really hard to take it to the next level. So I hope that helps. So there we go. We've got the Oracle card of the week.
Our last one.
Our last one.
Wow. So this week we're going to use the Angel Therapy cards. I thought these would be really nice cards to end off over.
Thank you for all your watches over the last 2.25 years.
Yeah.
Whether it's been with the daily show, the weekly show, or both. Thank you if you've just joined us. We're sorry we're going. Thank you if you've joined us in the past, but you know you're no longer with us. That's entirely your choice. We have wondered if our energy, because we have become so tired, has actually been part of not expressing ideas quite as well as we would like, not quite as elegantly or with the passion or as Elisa says, we don't feel that spirituality and the realities of life are mutually exclusive. But some people have really pushed back against that and have got quite cross with us about it. We try not to be overtly political about our own political views, but I read this week there are 11.5 million starving children in the world. We know that we've had about 4 million people displaced from Ukraine, which has been an absolute tragedy. People's homes have been bombed apart. Whatever the rights and wrongs, that's very difficult. That's how we feel about it, but we feel that that's not what necessarily people want, or some people. And it's just made us really reflect on, where we are.
And we have to take our own sort of
energy,
guidance, spiritual guidance. If any of us are going to give anyone any spiritual guidance or personal development guidance, we have to be willing to take that ourselves. And so that's what we're doing by winding down the show.
It's very Chiron orientated, really.
That advice.
We're giving, Chiron in the first house is about giving to oneself in a way, but also, and very importantly, Elisa hasn't been really making it known for some while that she does one-to-ones, and her one-to-ones are quite broad. They can be through tarot, they can be through angel cards or oracle, or it can be life coaching. She has got a first-class honours degree in politics. I like to tell people that 11 GCSEs, 5 A-levels, which is, pretty brilliant, and she can now step up doing the lives more because of spending a lot of time post-producing the weekly show, So we have been working 7 days a week, and it will free her up. If you'd like to speak to her, you can see the link below. And I do one-to-ones quite a lot. So if you'd like to have a one-to-one with me and find out more about how your chart progresses from whence you were born, the natal chart to the secondaries, through to your directions, your solar return, draconic, even your perfections, whatever I can help you with, I'm always here to be of humble assistance. So,
thank you so
what
much.
Card?
Okay, so the words on this card say emotional sensitivity. It says honour and respect your deep sensitivity as it is a gift to us all. Perfect. I have never liked the word oversensitive because I feel it's a little bit of a put down. I like the word hypersensitive because sensitivity is a gift. We don't really hear people say, oh, you're over ambitious, or you're over kind, or you're over, whatever. But with sensitivity, it seems to be like we're not allowed really to be oversensitive or get grouped in the snowflake section. But actually, sensitivity is a gift. It's what helps us communicate with each other authentically, spiritually, and allow ourselves to be emotionally sensitive this week.
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful. We'd also like to thank our Patreons who've been absolutely brilliant. We are still going to share bits and pieces. One of the other big news that's going on in our personal situation is we are moving again.
Yes.
Which is another thing that we're dealing with. And we're still going to be in beautiful West Wales, but we're moving somewhere different, which has different attributes. And we love being here. This is a magical property in a magical village, but there are other needs that we have and developing changes in our situation. So, so we will be sharing our story with Patreon still. If you'd like to become a patron, you can do so from $3 a month. Please see the link below. But thank you so much for all your interaction, fantastic comments, especially about Elisa's hair and nails.
Yes, thank you so much.
A rank lack of comments
Very
about
kind.
my nails. What's wrong with them? I want to know.
I'll paint them for you later.
Oh, thank you.
You can put it on Patreon.
Oh, thank you. So we'd like to sing you a little song taken from Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, who were great heroes of mine when I was a kid, because the A-Team are saying goodbye for now with Goodbye, goodbye, we wish you all goodbye, goodbye. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Goodbye, goodbye, we wish you all goodbye, goodbye. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. So from the A team it is
Goodbye from him.
and it's goodbye from her. Goodbye.